Shalom, first and foremost, all praise and glory is unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Harakakabadash. That belongs to our apostles, the bishops, the elders of the great millstone, and greetings, salutations, blessings, much love unto you, elect. Shalom unto you. Shabbat Shakwat from the Las Vegas Church. Just want to go into this dynamic, if you will, that's happening in the earth, particularly here in the Western world, America, in other parts of the world, but this is something that a lot of people don't recognize that's happening with the whole Strait of Hormuz situation. And I'm going to tie it into the image of the beast, if you will. Okay, just bear with me. It'll be a little bit, but if you don't already see it, hopefully this video will edify you enough to be able to see the potential of what they're creating with this system. Okay, with that move in the earth, how it's going to tie you into the mark of the beast system. Okay, from Revelation the 13th chapter. All right, so I went to the chat GPT, and there's a bunch of different things that I asked it. The last thing I asked was this: how is the oil shortage from the Strait of Hormuz affecting gas versus ethanol? Okay, because we know the last ships just came out the strait, or just arrived in America, I should say. All right, so gas in the near future, the next couple months, gas is we're gonna see some things happening with it. Okay, and I fully do not believe the price is gonna go down unless they manipulate the quality of it. All right, because what you must understand already, and you can look into this. I'm sure there's videos on it on the internet, YouTube and whatnot, that you can run your car on ethanol, okay, E85 or whatever it is, right? But gasoline is more efficient because it was designed to do that. What's the difference? One is oil-based, and I believe the other is corn-based, okay? And then it'll go into this a little bit here. So without further ado, let me read it. It says, but bear with me because this is going to be kind of roundabout, but just showing you how this system is deceptive, but it's happening, and it goes back years. Things that they've done years ago will affect this same thing. Okay, it says the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important oil transit routes in the world. Roughly 20% of global petroleum passes through it. And petroleum is not only gasoline, it's a lot of products, plastics, and so on and so forth that petroleum makes. Okay, a lot of your household products are made with petroleum. Okay, all types of things. Anyway, it says so when there's tension, disruption, or even just fear of it, it mainly hits oil-based fuels first, especially gasoline. Here's how that plays out for gasoline versus ethanol. Okay, I didn't want to break it up. I wanted to kind of see if it would tie it together and put one against the other. Anyway, it says gasoline directly affected. Gasoline is refined from crude oil. So anything impacting oil supply, like instability around the Strait of Hormuz, can. Now, but America has the biggest reserve of oil, but it's not crude. It's not the same stuff. Okay, and people just think oil is oil. Oil isn't. All oils are not created equal. Okay, let's just be real about that. Okay, different oils can be used at different things in different concentrations. Does your cooking oil, when you use vegetable oil, is it the same as olive oil? No. Okay, and I'm just using that as an easy analogy to understand that all things are not the same. Okay, it says it drives up prices quickly, sometimes within days. We saw that happen when your gasoline, went from, $3-4 or whatever the price may have been to $5-6 a couple months ago, or a month or so ago. Anyway, it says create supply concerns or tighter inventories. increased volatility at the pump. Okay, we're going to pay more at the pump. The U.S. does produce a lot of its own oil, but global pricing still matters. If global supply tightens, U.S. prices usually rise too. Okay, and not to say America doesn't have crude, but this devil wants he wants all the fatness of the earth that was given to him by blessing of Isaac. The blessing of Isaac, talking about Esau, got the blessing from Isaac. He wanted it all, man. Okay? He's not happy with having most of it and the strong influence on earth. He wants to dominate everything. Now, ethanol, which says ethanol in the U.S. is mostly made from corn, so it's not tied directly to crude oil shipping routes like the Strait of Hormuz, right? That means less direct impact. Ethanol supply isn't cut off by oil shipping disruptions, because that's what the Strait of Hormuz is doing, right? Domestic production keeps it relatively stable, but still influenced indirectly. Ethanol is blended into gasoline, E10, E15, E85 fuel. So if gasoline prices spike, blended fuel prices rise too. Okay, but you're basically, I don't want to say watering it down, but that's kind of what it is. You're mixing it gasoline, any basic drug dealer that's watched with the Snowfall or whatever, any of them shows could, any of those movies or whatever, can pick up on what's going on here. What happens when you water it down or dilute the substance. You can make more of it. Anyway, it says farming, fertilizer, and transportation costs depends on energy prices, so ethanol can get more expensive over time. Demand for ethanol may increase if refiners try to offset expensive gasoline with cheaper blending components. Okay. Key differences during an oil disruption. Gasoline immediate price spikes directly tied to global oil markets. Ethanol more insulated short term, moves more slowly, influenced by agriculture and energy costs, can become relatively cheaper compared to gasoline. The big picture. Ethanol becomes an oil disruption like one involving the Strait of Hormuz can actually make ethanol blends more attractive economically, because ethanol becomes a partial buffer against oil shocks. Countries, including the U.S., already use it to reduce reliance on pure gasoline. But ethanol can't fully replace gasoline. It's mostly a supplement, not a standalone solution for most vehicles. Okay, they can break it down. Okay, realistically into gas prices in Nevada. All right, blah, blah, blah. Now, when I go up to ethanol, let me go up to it. Okay, it says, what does a higher percentage of ethanol do to gasoline cars? Because they don't say that. Okay, well, it's just, we're going to have to add more so they can stretch out the gasoline that we have, the petroleum. Okay, from the crude oil. We just add more ethanol, right? Because we have more of it, we can produce more of it, right? And this is what they've been doing. A higher percentage of ethanol in gasoline, like moving from E10 to E15 or E85 fuel, changes how your engine behaves, because ethanol has different chemical and physical properties than pure gasoline. Here's what it actually does. Lower energy, which leads to worse fuel economy. Ethanol contains less energy per gallon than gasoline. So the higher the ethanol content, the more fuel your car burns to go the same distance. Okay. E10, small drop, often barely noticeable. E15 through 85, more noticeable decrease in miles per gallon. Higher octane can improve performance in the right engines. And I remember the first time I put 93 octane in my car, And I had a pretty strong engine in the car I was driving. And I mean, the car was upgraded a little bit. I mean, it was, man, I was like, whoa, it was a little bit more, a few more cents back, early 2000s, early 2000s, 05, 06, or whatever year that was, '08, so whatever year. And I mean, it took off. Okay, I mean, I could feel the power boost just on how the car drove, put 93 in there from 91 to 93. Okay, it was a big difference. Or you put an octane boost or whatever in your car, you can feel that difference, right? Where'd it go? Yeah, ethanol has a higher octane rating, which helps resist knocking. Performance or flex fuel engines can take advantage of this with better timing and sometimes slightly more power. Regular cars, little to no benefit. Flex fuel or tuned engines, potential gains, right? But who wants to have these tuned engines that are just going to burn up the gas? So you're forced into a flex fuel car, okay? And this is going to tie into my next thing, but I'll just keep reading and move right into it. It says, can stress fuel systems components, right? Ethanol is more corrosive and attracts water. It's hygroscopic. In higher concentrations, it can dry out or degrade rubber seals and hoses, especially in older cars. All this matters, right? Corrode certain metals in the fuel system, loosen debris in the tank, which can clog filters. Okay. Harder cold starts. High ethanol blends don't vaporize as easily in cold temperatures, which can make starting harder, especially with E85 in winter. Cleaner burning, with trade-offs. Ethanol burns cleaner in terms of some emissions like carbon monoxide, but it can increase evaporative emissions. The overall environmental impact depends on how the ethanol is produced. Compatibility matters, very important. Most modern cars, 2001 plus, are approved for E10. I think you do notice this at gas stations a lot, E10. Okay. It says many newer vehicles can handle E15. Only flex fuel vehicles, FFVs, are designed for higher blends like E85. Using an ethanol in a non-flex fuel car can trigger check engine lights, poor performance, or long-term damage. Bottom line, higher ethanol equals cleaner burning and higher octane, but less fuel efficiency and more strain on components if your car isn't designed for it. Okay, I didn't do that. I did ask, how does Cash for Clunkers from 2008 or 9 or whatever that was play into a larger scheme to remove older cars, better built gasoline cars, to new electronic vehicles with computers? And I had a video that I had seen that went into this, because anyway, that doesn't matter, trying to fix cars and repair certain vehicles for yourself, because you see the coming situation with gas. You're like, man, let me go and get this car fixed right now before prices go out of control and gas is this and that, and right. It says it's understandable to connect programs like Cash for Clunkers with broader exchange. Well, let me see what it says. To remove older, better built gasoline cars to new electronic vehicles with computers, right? And that's the idea. I couldn't find the video, but after I began to read some of this, I was able to word the search engine to find the video I was looking for, which I'll put at the end of this video. I'll just play it. It says, it's understandable Cash for Clunkers with broader changes in an auto industry. but the evidence doesn't support the idea that it was a coordinated scheme to eliminate better built older cars in favor of higher computerized or electric vehicles. That's not necessarily true. When I saw the video that I'm going to show you, and so I don't want to just hypothesize about it, I'll let the video do that, okay? Because that's already what I was thinking when I thought, like, man, I don't want to buy a new car. I don't want to pay $40,000 for a car that would have been $15,000, or to get the same features of a $15,000 car. Then you get it a couple years older or whatever, and it runs fine for now. But when there's problems, then you got to still go back to the dealer. And a lot of this is going to where you got to go to the dealer. Before, I'm old enough to remember mechanics were able to fix cars. If I know how to fix a Subaru, I know how to fix a Toyota. I know how to fix a Toyota. I know how to fix a Honda. I know how to fix Ford all day. And, it was kind of like that. You knew how to fix different things. Well, now they're like cornering you to go to certain places and have to pay the price at the dealer, for the dealer mechanic, because they're rating certain service parts. They're not rating it so you fix it and it's fixed forever. They want it to break. This is going to break because it's now made of plastic, petroleum, to last, 400 miles or, 4,000 miles or whatever. Then you replace it. Okay, and it's just a fee that's going to continually come around, like a subscription, which is what they're adding into these newer vehicles. But we'll get into that. Or the other video will anyway. It says, here's what the program actually was and what it did. What Cash for Clunkers was, the 2009 program, this is under Obama, officially the car allowance rebate system, was part of the U.S. Now, in defense or in observation of that time, you have to know that around, prior to 2009 in this situation, there was a bunch of junk cars all over America. You just see cars in the field, cars in the garage, cars in the backyard, just cars everywhere. And people's like, well, I might as well just get some, I'm kind of strapped for cash. I might as well get some money for it. And they're probably going to say they did it to keep the to boost the economy. You give us something, we'll do that. Okay, we'll give you money to buy a new car. It kind of feeds the economic system, which sounds easy, right? But there's more to it. This devil really doesn't do anything without taking an advantage of you. Let me see if I can find that scripture right quick. I'll read this one. This is close enough anyway. Sirach 12, verse 16. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood, right? All right, keep reading. It says, and then there's other precepts that support that. If he doeth good, he does it unwillingly, and so on and so forth. This man always has an ulterior motive. Okay, when you look up ulterior motives, it's usually something that doesn't have your best interest in it, but his own best interest in it, right? It says, it says, the program, officially the car allowance rebate system, was part of the U.S. response to the financial crisis under American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. It offered people money to trade in older, less fuel-efficient vehicles for newer ones that met higher miles per gallon standards. Okay, and if it was under 18 miles per gallon in efficiency on the road or highway or whatever, you could trade it in. Even though, and they wanted cars that were drivable. They take cars that were not drivable in some cases, but they wanted drivable cars. And as we get into the video, he's going to explain a lot of it, but just from what I already know, before I watched the video, I tried to, bought a nice tool set, and I was like, okay, I bought this Ford, and I'm going to get up under the hood and just keep it tuned up and keep it, and work on it myself. So I was getting into it and going to the pick apart and all these other things. But now they're killing that whole industry, even the hustle of mechanics. Okay. They're killing all of that. Okay, so you can see how you won't be able to buy or sell. The trade was okay. I pay you cash or whatever the case may be for you fixing my vehicle. Well, that's a dying industry now. Okay, not only does Gen Z not really want to do that job, they rather do computer work. Well, they're not making the industry easy to get into. Yeah, you can go auto body, automotive class in high school, whatever, but you're not seeing it the same as it once was. A mechanic was a respected job. It wasn't necessarily a prestigious job like a doctor or a lawyer, but many people just would have that skill under their belt. Okay, because it's very efficient. Women, it was something that women be like, "Oh, you a mechanic? Oh, really? Oh, you a handyman? Oh, really?" And they were into that. Now with the system, and you got to see it, man. Just like they took the man out the house when they removed the man out the house by giving telling the woman, if you want these government subsidies, you can't have a man in the house, but we're gonna do the man's job by paying what the man does. The Israelite woman, particularly the black woman, fell for that. Okay, she didn't think that she would need the connection to the Most High God because the church appealed to her anyway. The church house that wasn't teaching truth and reasonability and accountability and all these other things that the actual word does teach. The family structure, the balance of emotion and logic and practicality and all these things that the man brings to a situation in a household, that's now removed out of it. Well, it's just, and as well as the provider and the protector of the house, all that's being removed out of it. Just not giving Jake a job didn't break the family. Even though Jake didn't have a job, that didn't break the family alone. Okay? They had to completely remove the man from the house because he still, would hustle. He still would give guidance and understanding and a level of understanding and wisdom to situations, a godly fear of some sort, usually, okay, in the house, and that maintained families for generations. But now, when you look at the kids that are born now, that structure's not there. Women understood, like these recent mothers, the generation of recent mothers, they understood, I can have a baby and it'll be taken care of by the government. This whole President Trump thing, Nero 47, he was like, you only get a couple years on this and then you got to get off. And women were crashing out. It wasn't just black women, but women in general were crashing out. You're supposed to pay for this. This is because they grew up believing that this is what it was supposed to be. Some of these women, second, third, fourth generation welfare. And they believe the government and the taxpayer is supposed to help them. Okay? So just showing you how this connects to a greater thing, that if they're providing the things that a man did for you, they can remove the man and the reasonability of the man and then provide the things that a man would provide, money, and help around the house and all of this, so on and so forth. But when it came down to it, they can pull those services, and now you're really trapped. Now you don't have guidance to say, no, let's go back and talk to this teacher or talk to this principal or talk to the school board because I don't like this. Okay, so when the mom goes to work, she don't have time or the energy to deal with this, but the father sees further down the road than I'm tired today. And the father was like, hey, I need to cut this off from them pushing this on my children. Okay, as I'm talking about cars, this is a bigger system that I'm trying to illustrate for people to see. It's the same playbook. This man doesn't have any new plays. He used the same play, the same recipe book for everything he cooks up. Okay, I'm going to remove the direct position that I want, who's ever in the position I want. I'm going to put myself in that position. I'm going to get you comfortable with me being in that position and providing everything I provide for it, and then I'm going to trap you into that position by threatening you to leave out of it. That I'll remove myself, and now you got to be under my watch and command. You could have just been under the man. Just could have been under the Most High God. Okay, through Yahweh Shai, right? Anyway, back in it, it says the main goals. I'll read up. It said it offered people money to trade in older, less fuel-efficient vehicles for newer ones that met higher miles per gallon. Keep in mind all of this when I play the video. It says the main goal is stimulate the economy during a recession, boost auto sales, right? Because Detroit was, man. And it's funny because it didn't really work that way. People took that, but they went and bought Japanese sedans instead of those American trucks that were really doing it. Those early SUVs, Ford Explorers and whatever else that were just bulletproof, man. That the engines ran hard. They called beaters. Those old Hondas that gas and ass, as they used to say, put gas and ass in it, and it's gonna get you A to B. Okay, it says reduce fuel consumption. It says lower emissions. But why do you just keep the gas prices low? You got a fuel consumption. Lower emissions by replacing older vehicles with newer ones, cleaner ones. Oh, for the environment. They always throw the environment in there. At the time, 2009, the focus wasn't electric vehicles. EVs were barely on the market, but they were already seeing ahead because back then they were talking about this green guy or whatever situation, right? If you know, you know, right? It says, that's the inside joke, this green guy. And he says most replacements were just newer gasoline cars with better efficiency. Yeah, but what did those, the video is going to explain it. What did those cars have in it? Different from, and I'm going to just say it was an electric computer-based car versus an analog car. Now I still have to go to the dealer. I still owe the dealer some money, giving the dealer money so they could tell me if my car, I got to have that part for the car to run. Versus when I owned the car, anything compatible, that was a selling point. Hey, there's a lot of these on the road. Ford and Mercury, they both are compatible. Acura and Honda are compatible. Toyota and Lexus are compatible. Okay, and so on and so forth, all the way down the industry. Okay, Infiniti and Toyota compatible, or is it Lexus and Toyota? But you get the point. Okay, now that's not the same case the same way anymore. So what actually happened? About 700,000 vehicles were traded in, and they said this wasn't even a long program. This was a pretty short program. Old engines had to be disabled, which is why people remember them being destroyed. Okay, and the video is going to get into that. It says, buyers mostly purchase standard gasoline-powered cars, not EVs. Great. Where the concern comes from, some criticism of the program are valid, but they different from a coordinated scheme. Right, I use that word to see if they were tying a scheme. Loss of cheap used cars. And as you'll see in the videos, a car that was $2,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 is now $10,000 to $15,000 for the same car. As it got older, when a brand new car drives off the lot, it has already depreciated. Well, it should never appreciate until it hit like 20 years and in great running status, like restored status, is when it would be appreciated. The value would appreciate. Not now. Just having there's certain cars, older cars that I like now that I've always liked, and I look back like, let me look into this car, and you know what? They're harder to find. Not only that, but they're tough to get for a reasonable price. Where you can get one running for about, like I said, $3,000, $4,000, Even though they still want you to sell your car for that price, you got to buy it for nearly 10,000 now, 8 to 10,000, right? It says loss of cheap cars, destroying older vehicles, reduce supply, which may have raised prices for low-income buyers. Jay can't get one. You stuck on the city system now, on the city transportation system, that you won't be able to ride if you don't have that implant. Always keep in mind what the mark of the beast, Revelation the 13th chapter tells you about. You can't participate in this system if you're not worshiping the beast and his image, which that image is a way of life. You have to be in this way of life. The technocracy, you have to be in the system. You have to have the implant to do all these things. And they're building it up and they're gradually forcing you into it. They don't want the system because it's like they do the one with the frog, gradualism with the frog, but the other one is when you temper eggs. Okay, for you chefs out there, when you temper eggs, you gotta mix the egg in slowly and then raise the temperature slowly. You can't just throw it in too hot and then you'll scramble the eggs. You just want to temper them. Okay, where it still gives you the desired consistency by heating it up, and it adds a custard like whatever, right? But however that goes, but you got to heat it up slowly is the point, because if you don't, it'll destroy what you're trying to do with the eggs. Okay, or like the frog analogy, if you heat it up too fast, the frog will jump out. You heat it up slowly, the frog won't even realize he's being cooked, and before he realized how hot it is, he done got used to it, and now he's cooked completely. Right? Questionable environmental impact. The emissions savings were real, but relatively modest compared to the cost of the program. Older cars can be durable, and here's where it really gets big. The video is going to highlight. Some older vehicles are mechanically simple and easier to repair, which people often view as better built in terms of longevity. Yeah, because once you get on a lease or whatever for the car, and you get it for, whatever you pay a month for about 4 or 5 years, 3 years, or whatever, you pay it off. You now own the vehicle. It's now your complete responsibility, which it has been, but it's your complete responsibility to do oil changes and maintenance. All that comes out of pocket. But they had not aluminum, steel block engines that didn't really warp or break. There's all kinds of things that they made in cars before that they're doing aluminum and different things now that change everything. And if they really I think the video brings it up because I've seen a few videos on this. Why would they put that solution to destroy the engine and seize up the engine that they couldn't even scrap the metal? Why would they do that to destroy the engines that way when they could have just scrapped the engine out and let people rebuild their cars for cheap? Because that's not what they wanted. It's something bigger to it. And see, chat didn't pick up on it, apparently, or I didn't ask the right questions, apparently. It says about modern computerized vehicles. It's true that newer cars have more electronics and software, are harder to repair without specialized tools, including emissions controls and safety programs, right? By that shift is driven by safety regulations, airbags, stability control, crash standards, right? Emissions laws, consumer demands for tech features. Because some of those cars, they be billowing out carbon dioxide, that black, pollutants, smog as they want to call it. They just pushing all that out, right? It says consumer demand for tech features, and people wanted more tech. Not a single coordinated removal, and people don't want the tech now. People are not looking for that touch screen as much anymore because they don't always do as great as it offered, or when it was brand new the first couple of years, or the longevity of say 10 years of a car. And I could have looked it up. I didn't think to, but I think when you buy a car, most people want to keep it for close to 10 years. I know some elderly people, which are seen to be some of the best places to purchase cars from. They'll keep a car and they'll just buy another car and keep that car also. Or they'll pass it down to a grandchild or something, that wants it, for their first starter car. And then they'll upgrade themselves and they'll keep that. They'll buy it, pay it off, and then they'll, so on and so forth. Well, that's not the same anymore. They want you to get into these temporary deals. Companies like Hyundai and all of that, they want you in the car for 3 to 5 years and then to trade up and right when you're about to pay it off. They don't want you to pay it off. They want you to buy into a new deal. And now I went from a $16,000 car to now a $25,000 car, and I'm gonna pay that and pay that and pay that, and from that we'll take care of the maintenance for you. But then from that into the next $45,000 car, $60,000, and then eventually you're like, well, I got better money. Let me go ahead and, in the space of 20 years, you didn't pay 200 grand on these cars, and that you wouldn't have been paying on, and the car still be running. If you paid, the basic maintenance and things like that, that would have cost you probably, 20 grand, instead of 100 or 200 grand already, depending on the car and the notes that you have. So crazy idea. And this is something that's not in the younger mentality, in the modern mentality anymore. Okay. So not a single coordinated removal plan tied to that one program. Okay. It says bottom line, Cash for Clunkers did remove a chunk of older vehicles from the road, but it was short-lived, just a few months. 700,000 in a few months. Come on, that's a lot. It mostly replaced old gas cars with newer gas cars. It wasn't designed around electric vehicles adoption or long-term technological control. Okay, and it goes right down the industry. Now, I did that. I asked that question. See what else I asked. Okay, that was that. All right. What's the first question I asked? Yeah, right. So now let's go to the next something, because this is something coming in 2027. My brother had posted this, and I just and they screenshot it, and it was going around. But what I've done is just ask the same question. AI cars 2027. I saw the news article on it, but this just makes it a little easier. It says by 2027, and 14 sites have this, right? By 2027, every new car sold in the United States is expected to be equipped with mandatory AI-powered driver monitoring technology aimed at detecting and preventing impaired driving. Okay? On the way of me putting this information together, here in Vegas, somebody just was completely impaired and was plowing through cars at Town Square. And they, or whatever was wrong with them, but they didn't look all nervous or like they didn't have control. They just looked uninterested in whatever they were doing, just running through cars, and could have hurt somebody. And all this is gonna pop up. They the same play. They love to show you problems, and then they have the solution damn near ready for it. Okay? Well, people are getting a lot of accidents, so we need to make sure people are okay and not driving impaired. And that can be medical marijuana, that can be pills, that can be alcohol, it can be whatever. Sleep. Eventually, if you're too sleepy to drive home, your car won't let you. It's going to save lives. Okay, sounds good. And people are already, buying into that whole idea. Yeah, just get an Uber. Just catch an Uber. And eventually that Uber driver is going to be an AI. Like in there's movies with it already. They had that in the 90s with, what's that movie with Schwarzenegger? Total Recall. Okay, they had it in Demolition Man, another 90s movie. Okay, And then then they had it in series like Black Mirror. A pizza delivery got into an accident, and I think it killed somebody in that episode, and whatever. You could check that episode out. I forgot the name of it, but it was a completely AI pizza delivery. Okay, another one was the entire history of you. One of my favorite episodes on Black Mirror, where he was drunk and the car warned him not to drive because it knew he was impaired. How would it know? Okay, because he had a C-hip in him. Anyway, it says mandatory AI monitoring in 2027. This requirement stems from a federal safety initiative, specifically Section 2420 of the 2021 Infrastructure Investment in Jobs Act of 2021. That's COVID, right? It says designed to reduce crashes caused by drunk, drowsy, and distracted drivers. Yeah, people on their smartphones and so on and so forth. In-cabin surveillance. This is 2021 when this was written up. In-cabin surveillance systems will use infrared cameras and biometric sensors. Biometric. Bio means human. Let's define that real quick. Metric is measure. To measure, let's see what it says. Biometrics refers to the automated recognition of individuals based on their unique biological or behavioral characteristics. It uses technology to measure and analyze physical features such as fingerprints, facial patterns, or iris scans, or behavioral traits such as gait, or voice to verify or identify a person's identity. Can't you open your phone with your face or your fingerprint right now? The water's heating up. When you gonna jump out? You can't jump out. This is the system being set up. This is going to lead us to the hour of temptation where we have to still deny all these things, not at every level, but the implant level. Okay? We have to deny that part, the implant level. Okay? We have to deal with it up to the implant level and then cut it off at the implant level. Okay? And that will be but the system will be completely at that point. And as far as that's like, we're not even close to that. We're very close to that. We're very close to that. The implants are already being manufactured. There's plenty of people with them already out there. So we're not far at all. It's June. Okay? Inside. It says to verify or identify a person's identity, commonly for security and authentication purposes. Key aspects of biometrics, types of data. Biometrics include physical characteristics, fingerprints, and behavioral characteristics. Typing rhythm. They can pick up so you thought your Xbox controller didn't know it was you, but it knows it's you because it knows the pattern that you like to press buttons in. You like to press the turbo, then you'll go to the triangle, then you'll go to the square on a PlayStation or whatever. That knows that's when you on offense or whatever you're doing. They know you like to do that. Okay? And that's on that, let alone, and I knew that about when I used to play video games on, all the time. I mean, it knows. And when I was on somebody else's profile on Xbox, I was like, man, this is not doing what I do with mine, and messing up the algorithm. But PlayStation told us it was going to do that with EA Sports and all of that. It told you, or was it Xbox? I forget. It said they're going to start, those commercials were talking in the early 2000s were talking about it reading you. So something to that effect, So this is what's going on. Hand geometry, palm recognition. You can pay with your palm in certain stores, right? Veins, DNA, and behavioral characteristics, typing rhythm, gait, voice signature, how it works. I mean, you can read into how it works. Biometric system capture processes and compare biometric data like a face scan against a stored template to authorize access. You can't buy or sell without the biometric data. Biometric, what they call it, digitized digital biometrics, right? It says, such as unlocking a phone or passing through airport security. Requirements: effective biometrics must be universal. Everyone has them, unique to the individual, permanent, unchanging over time, and collectible. You look at movies like, what was the other one? There's a couple of movies that have it where people get facial reconstruction, okay? Where people get iris implants. They switch out their eyes. So their iris can't be scanned the same way. That was in a Minority Report, okay? He even had it to where he under the chin, he shot himself with something, and it basically made his face relax to a point where he couldn't be facial scanned the same way. All the muscles in his face relaxed or whatever, and his skin kind of drooped. Okay, facial recognition. That was that future of pre-crime that they were talking about. Okay, so all your habits, if you got pre-crime habits, hey, they're gonna take you to jail. This is the system they're setting up. And you can read on. It goes on and on. Of course, there's gonna show benefits, right? Common examples. Okay, pause and read for yourself. This is, see facial scan right there. Okay, go back. Okay, back in this AI Cars 2027, intervention capabilities. Okay, it says the AI will have the power to intervene if it deems a driver impaired, or if you have a social credit score, like in the Black Mirror, below certain numbers. Oh, you only have a 3.7. Nah. Where you can't drive no more. You've had too many violations in the past, 6 months. You can't drive for the next 3 months till you repair your social credit score. Just as an example of what could possibly be, they're gonna do with this. This is in Black Mirror. They show that in Black Mirror. I think it's called Nosedive, right? To intervene if it deems a driver impaired, which may include preventing the car from starting or stopping the vehicle in real time. Privacy concern. It could, and with this automated driving like the Teslas do, it may drive you off. We got somebody right now that we believe is a criminal. We're just going to drive him straight to the police station and turn him in and park out front and alert the police to come and get him. Right? Privacy concerns. The mandate has sparked significant debate regarding constant surveillance and the potential for misuse of collected data. They're already doing it. Already collecting the data. I love the line that he said in the movie Ex Machina, Machina, however you want to pronounce it, where he said they know I was doing it, but they couldn't say anything. Basically, looking at all the cookies and the data that you're getting from the online from the search engine and so on, because then they'd have to admit that they were doing it also. They couldn't get me for it because then they'd have to admit that they were doing it, right? Autonomous driving in partnerships. Beyond safety mandates, several manufacturers and tech companies have targeted 2027 for major milestones in AI-driven mobility. Nissan aims to launch vehicles with end-to-end autonomous driving capability by the end of the fiscal year 2027, featuring their ProPilot and AI partner technologies, Uber and NVIDIA. NVIDIA, whatever, I don't know. Plans are in place to roll out a fleet of level 4 autonomous taxis in Los Angeles and San Francisco by 2027. Why? Because 2028 is the Olympics in Southern California. Okay, gonna be the Olympics, the California Olympics. Anyway, it's gonna be in California. Smart LA. It says Honda has announced it will challenge existing self-driving leaders with its own AI self-driving car technologies by 2027. Okay? This is what's going on. 2027 model year landscape. While AI tech is the primary focus, the automotive market in 2027 will see several shifts. New electric models. Expected releases include the Audi 6. There's naming cars in this. But there's privacy implications of these laws. And they were asking if you're concerned about it. All right. And that was that. So now I'm going to end the video pretty much. Like I said, I'll bring it up just so you can read the scripture real quick. We should all know this scripture. If you don't, I don't know what you're doing in life, because everybody swears they know the breakdown. Right or wrong, everybody should know what the scripture said, but let me bring it up. Okay, here it is right here. I love to read 13 through 17, but it's all ties into it. You know, there's a lot of breakdown to this. You have to understand who those first beasts were. What's the first beast? It was the fourth beast before when the deadly wound was healed, which represented the Roman Empire. And this, we're living in the Americas and the Western societies, is the rebirth of the Roman Empire. Okay, you can look at so many characteristics of it to prove that. All right. And you can see that happening in the Western world, because the Eastern world is who is fighting against this system, so to speak. Or we laugh because Russia doesn't agree with America on many things. China doesn't agree on many things with America. Even the countries in the Middle East don't agree with America on a lot of things. But when it comes to certain MOTB tech, they're with that. In surveillance and technology, they're with that, though. They're all on one accord. They just breeze over how easily they believe in the same things on those levels, though. Okay? This world is not designed for you to understand it, that it wants your best interest on any side. Not until the Israelites are in power will righteousness flourish in the earth. Okay? There's no other way around it. So anyway, Revelation 13:15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. How? How did he give life unto it? Because now his science and technology is up to speed to where he can monitor and control everything. And he can create this new way of life with chips to monitor things, as well as UPC codes and barcodes, right? That fathered or even grandfathered this technology, but as well as given life. The technology is up to date, but now he has the power, and he needs this now to control everything on earth with his NWO. Okay, and this is what's going to give him that power. The technology will give him that power to control it all. Okay, that's how life is given into this complete control system, because they tried to create an image of the beast system in ancient Rome, and even before that in Greece and so on and so forth. And even all the way, if you really want to go all the way back to the Tower of Babel. But now technology is able to give true life to the image of the beast. Okay? And that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he calleth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a charagma, an implant, in their right hand or in their forehead. And that's put there for the word mark, that no man might buy or sell. If you can't buy or sell in the system, you can't participate. You're going to be X'd out, and you're going to die off outside of the system. You go back and you go into movies like Demolition Man, the people that didn't have the implant, they were living in the sewers eating rat burgers. Okay? And it's crazy how in that movie, how he accepted it so quickly. And it was the normal for people. Who did you see down there? Blacks and Hispanics were underground eating rat burgers when you get into that movie. Wesley Snipes took a big sniff. You know, Wesley Snipes, black guy and villain in the movie. He opened up the manhole, like, I love that smell. It smells like biscuits and gravy. It smells like comfort at home, the hood. So he went down there, right? And that's where he found his team of villains anyway. That no man might buy or sell save he that had the implant or the mark, right? Or the name of the beast or the number of his name, right? So let me go to this and get my Apostle Tahar on what chat says about GMS and this breakdown. It says, the group that goes by GMS, Great Millstone, often associated with strands of the modern Hebrew Israelite movement, teach a very specific interpretation of Revelation 13. According to GMS, the mark of the beast in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, is not symbolic in their view. They identify it as a literal physical microchip implanted, placed in the body, often described as in the hand or forehead, matching the wording of the passage. They commonly link this to the systems of digital identification, which we're talking about in this video, cashless payments, okay, and which will be all credited to your implant, and government control through AI, which Palantir is filling in that, right? Arguing that such technology could be used to restrict buying and selling, right? In their teaching, accepting this mark is seen as an act of allegiance to the beast system, which they often interpret as a modern political power structure, sometimes tied to Western governments. Wow. Important context. This is one interpretation. It is not the mainstream view in Christianity. We don't need to read that. We wanted what GMS had to say. Yep. GMS specifically teaches that the mark of the beast is a literal microchip implant tied to economic control, but that interpretation is debated and not even universally accepted, even among those who read Revelation literally. Yeah. So you got to get on board with this, man. We're watching it unfold in real time. Okay? They're going to monitor you through your vehicle. Where you can't drive, they're going to monitor your eyes and how sharp you are, if you intend to hurt with your vehicle, all types of crazy stuff. Okay? This is what they're trying to do. All right? With this system. Now, let me play the video. I think it might be a 7. At least I'm going to play most of it. But it's a good video. I'll try to put the link in it. But I'm going to just try to play it and see how much I can get without too much going on. Fair use, fair use, fair use. I'm going to leave it like this so you can see that. Illegal car ownership, right? Why they stopped making reliable cars. Okay. You see that? Well, let me see if I can play this video. Fair use, fair use, fair use. This was the video up top here. They wiped them out with cash for clunkers, right?
Your car isn't an asset. It's a subscription service with a kill switch, and the reason you're trapped started 15 years ago. With a smile, a handshake, and a government program called Cash for Clunkers. They told you they were saving the planet. They lied. They were erasing your escape road. They didn't just destroy cars, they destroyed the market. They forced you into a debt trap you can't escape. And the worst part is, you thanked them for it. You remember the summer of 2009. The news anchors were cheering. Your neighbor traded in that old, reliable truck for a shiny new crossover with 0% financing. You felt the pressure. Everyone was upgrading. You thought, maybe I should too. It felt like free money. A win-win. You walked into a dealership thinking you were making a smart financial move. You handed over the keys to a vehicle that owed you nothing for a loan that owned you forever. You drove off the lot feeling like a winner. You didn't know it then, but you just walked into a cage. This was not a glitch in the system. This was the system working exactly as designed. You were sold a story about emissions, about fuel efficiency. That was the cover. The real goal was artificial scarcity. The powers that be needed to wipe out the competition. They needed to destroy millions of paid-off, reliable, mechanical vehicles. So you would have no choice but to finance the digital traps they were building. They didn't want you to have a car that lasted 20 years. They wanted a customer for life. They needed to break the cycle of ownership, and Cash for Clunkers was the hammer. Look at who benefited. The automakers were drowning. Their books were bleeding red. They had warehouses full of overpriced, overcomplicated inventory that nobody wanted. The government stepped in not to help you, but to bail them out using your tax dollars to buy their mistakes. Dealerships became the executioners. They took your trade-in, and instead of reselling it, they were forced by law to kill it. Sodium silicate. That was the weapon. They poured liquid glass into the engine, ran it until the bearings fused, and turned good metal into scrap in seconds. Metal screaming against metal. They murdered millions of lifeboats so you'd be forced onto their sinking ship. But it gets worse. They didn't just crush the old cars. They fundamentally changed what a car is. The vehicle you're forced to buy today isn't a machine. It's a computer on wheels, and you don't own the code. By removing millions of cheap cars from the supply chain, they manipulated the entire market. The floor fell out. A beater that cost $2,000 in 2008 costs $8,000 today. That's not just inflation. That's engineered scarcity. You are paying a premium for their crime. Every time you look at used car prices, you're looking at the receipt for cash for clunkers. Here's the part nobody tells you. Modern cars are designed to fail. Planned obsolescence is baked into the software. A sensor trips, the car goes into limp mode, and you're held hostage by the dealer.
No different than your smartphone. Okay, how come I can't remove the battery out of an Apple anymore? How come I can't? You start thinking and understanding these things. Why does my phone slow down right when a new OS program comes out, or the new upgrade comes out, or a new model comes out? Okay, this is the same idea. It worked with phones. Why won't it work with cars?
You can't fix it. The tools are locked behind proprietary paywalls. The parts are paired to the VIN. You try to swap a module from a junkyard? The car bricks itself. Right to repair is dead because they killed the cars that didn't need it. They created a world where you are legally forbidden from fixing your own property. You are a user, not an owner. And this is where it becomes dangerous. Your car is watching you. Telematics. Every mile, every speed, every hard brake is uploaded to the cloud. Insurance companies are already using this data to jack up your rates. But the control goes deeper. Connected services mean a remote kill switch. Miss a payment? You try to swap a module from a junkyard? The car bricks itself. Right to repair is dead because they killed the cars that didn't need it. They created a world where you are legally forbidden from fixing your own property. You are a user, not an owner. And this is where it becomes dangerous. Your car is watching you. Telematics.
Your car is watching you. Telematics. Okay. I think I'll name it that. So Lord willing, I'll try to upload this. Put in the description. Lord willing is that if I'm giving all praise and glories unto Yahweh Bashim Yahshua Bashim Rakakodash to the next one. Shalom.